Namaste. Thank you so much for clicking through to my YouTube video. I'm Tash and my channel and business is called Heart and Design. Here you will find a wide range of step-by-step tutorials, but also my favourite, mindfulness art sessions. Please like and subscribe if you haven't already. So let's get started. Today it's our step-by-step tutorial.
So let's get started. This is a pencil drawing of the rabbit using the reference photo that you can see, and we are just you just need to do a transfer from whichever method you want to use, whether it's using tracing paper or the grid method or just having a go at freehand drawing. Make sure if you have pressed quite hard that you do what I'm doing now. Use a kneadable eraser so that the background, the pencil background, you can't see it too much. It's enough for you to see, for you to paint in, but it's not kind of going to stand out when you put down your watercolours. So first of all, I'm going to go in and use the flat brush and wet down the background, so I'll leave you to watch that. Once you've got the background all wet, we're going to go in with some yellow colours because it's very prominent in the background. It's really yellow. Now we're going for a really blurred background. That's why we've placed water down on the background, because we're going to do wet on wet. I haven't put down as much water as I should. I'm always a bit more on the careful side because I can always add more to my brush afterwards. I'm pushing the colour around where I think I want it to go, and as I add more colours, I do think I use like 2 or 3 different yellows and greens in the background. I'm just pushing it in. It doesn't really matter where or how, it's going to be blurred. Just use the picture as the guidance of where the colours are. I use oranges, browns and greens, I think. So I'll stop talking, I'll let you watch, and I'll come back in for the next stage. Now I just want to come in with a quick note here. So in some of the areas where I've laid down a bit too much water, there is pooling. Now we use the artist tape around the watercolour paper to hold it down, to try and avoid as much of the pooling of the water as possible. But you can see on the left hand side here, some of my paper really has buckled up, so the water is settling, and I needed to use a bit of paper towel to kind of dab that away. So always have some paper towel handy. It's something you may need to do. I think I did it a few times on this, so don't worry if that happens. It's not an emergency. We can put that right. Okay, so once you've dried all of your background off, it's time to go in and do the base layer of the rabbit. Now for me, when I look at that image, I can see some very pale grey in the background, so I do recommend that you do the same as me if you're learning, because it takes a long time to learn to look at a picture and see the different colours and the different layers you're going to need. So I start off with a very pale layer of grey, because the whiter areas aren't actually white, they're grey, because they're absorbing other colours. But also another layer on top of that I go in for is like a yellowy ochre colour. There are areas that are a bit yellow and orangey, and then I also go in with on some layers with some darker brown, and then some really dark brown and even black at the end. It's just a case of adding those layers in. So here we are, we're just popping in the grey, and then in a minute we move on to adding some other grey, but actually creating marks that are in the same direction as the fur. Really important, and I'll say this probably throughout the video 100 times, but it really is important. And the whole part of putting down this lighter colour, light grey first, is also because we want to make a 3D creature, animal, that is popping off the screen. We don't want it to look flat. So at the moment I'm doing the first value layer, light value layer, a light grey. Value literally means how dark or light it is, and I found that it's just so important, and I talk about this again later in the video as well, I think. So yeah, even though I'm doing the background, I'm still trying to paint it in the direction that the animal's fur is going in. So just do that all the time. Keep looking, keep observing, keep looking back at the picture, and keep it all in the direction it should be, and it all makes sense towards the end. So I'm going to leave you for now while we do the first couple of layers. So I'm going in now. This colour is a mixture of brown and yellow ochre, and then I've added in some white, and it kind of gives that nice peachy colour, because when I look at that picture I can see one of the mid colours is like a peachy colour. So we're going in with that so that eventually we'll have lots of layers and lots of shades and tones of fur. I'm doing it quite loosely on this bottom layer. Loosely meaning bigger brush strokes, not necessarily realistic brush fur strokes. They're not tiny, they're not detailed, but it's just giving an idea of the flow and direction of the fur. So coming in now with grey, but a slightly darker grey than before. And as I was saying before, using the brush, we can just use the very point of the round brush and start to put in some layers of fur, as in very fine strokes. I do actually go finer than this with a smaller brush later on, which you'll see. And I'm just constantly looking backwards and forwards at the picture. If there's anything I can tell you, it's to keep looking, observing at what you're trying to create. Sorry, I was getting distracted by my software then. So I've been a bit looser now, and towards the back where its bottom is, I won't be doing too much detail that way. We won't see it anyway because the grass is all coming up. Really, it's all about the face and the front part of the body, so I'll be definitely doing a lot more detail there. So the next stage, I've got some yellow ochre, and there are some areas that I can kind of see that yellow ochre to me is like a mustardy yellow, almost like a yellowy orange. So there are places on the rabbit where I can see that to me stands out. So I'm just going in with a bit of that colour. What it also does is balance the image so that some of the background colour is coming into the rabbit, and we do absorb colours, things reflect from each other and absorb. So I wanted it to reflect in the rabbit itself as well to make the picture balanced. Yeah, I just wanted to go in and do the eyes, make sure I got them in the right place, because I also need to remember to keep the white space. So I thought if I put the eyes in, then I will know where the white space is. But I remember I had to go back in here because poor rabbit had wonky eyes, so I had to make sure that I had them level and they were kind of the right size. That looks really dark from the camera right now, but when it dries it looks like grey, so I do actually go in again and make those eyes pop. So it's yeah, it looks good eventually, but again we are thick in the middle of the ugly stage, so don't worry. Don't forget as well to keep drying in between layers. It's really important to make sure you do that. So just continuing to add in some of that yellow ochre into the areas where I feel I can see it. It won't be as obvious once we put the top layers on. There's a little bit in the ears, the nose area, a little bit around the bottom of the eyes. So here I just get a thin darker brown colour that I'm going to just try and get the nose and the mouth in the right place, just so I can, as I'm painting, I can kind of decipher what's what on the face, because at the moment it's very difficult to tell, even though it is pencil drawn in there. So I'm doing that first before I give it a good dry, and then we go on to the next part. So just finishing off the drying there very quickly. We're about to start with a darker brown, not a really dark brown, more of like an orangey brown, and we're going to start putting in some of the fur around the head and the ears and the body. And as I'm going through, all I'm doing is marking in the fur with tiny little strokes, using the point of the brush in the direction of the fur. Now, to get the direction of the fur, look at the photo. As I've said before, it's all about the observation. Look at the photo and see where and what direction they're going in, and just trust that eventually, if you're doing that, if you're observing, and if you are drawing these lines in the direction of the fur, making sure that they're not perfect little lines all in the same place like in a row, which is the tendency. Our brain likes to organize things like that, but fur isn't like that. Fur's all over the place. So trust that if you are looking at the photo, you're doing haphazard strokes for the fur and they are in the right direction. Trust that eventually it will come together. That's what I always say to myself when I look at a painting. I think, oh, it's looking awful. I've still got a long way to go, and it will come together. So keep going wherever you're at. If you're at this point, keep going. So I'm going to turn off the microphone now and just carry on watching me as I paint in all of the fur. So now I'm just working on the mouth area, just starting to shade in a little bit, only lightly, not too dark, because as I've said before, you can't take back when you've put it down. It's very difficult to. So although the mouth area is quite dark, I will come back and do that once I've done all of the fur, because then I will know how dark to go. But I wanted to shade it in so I had a sense, a rough sense of where it is. So now I'm going for more of an orangier colour, because I just, once you put the brown on top, it gives it a nice tone, but I didn't want it quite that red. It was looking a bit red, so still needed to be there, because when you look closely at the image, you can kind of see underneath the dark fur there are bits of like reddy orange fur. So that's what I'm doing now. I can see a little bit under the neck and a little bit on the outside. So the next stage is moving on to more grey, doing another layer of grey, a bit darker, and focusing underneath the chin area because that gets quite dark as we go further into the image. There'll be a much darker area there. So I'm just trying to fill in, again, the same as before, doing some more first strokes haphazardly, try not to do them in a line, and making sure that they are in the right direction. Keep checking back on that photo. So now I'm going in with a darker brown, a bit like on the face, and starting to add some of that into the front body of the rabbit, but where I can see it on the photo, again with everything else, observation. So it's just that slightly darker brown like on the face. There's not too much dark on that part of the rabbit's body, so I end up going a bit more detailed on the bit you can see of the back fur, and then I don't worry too much about the bottom because the grass is going to be covering that. So yeah, I do another layer in this colour on the body. I'll let you watch that before the next stage. So when I go down to the bottom part of the rabbit here, I'm doing it very loosely in much bigger strokes because, as I've said before, that's going to be hidden. I don't need a lot of detail there, but I do still need to make sure that all my strokes are going in the right direction, that they're all leading up and down the rabbit, because they're going in that direction. And then you start to see where the front comes in, and we know where the legs are and where the body comes down the back. Basically, just keep observing, keep looking at what the image is, take your time, put detail in where you want detail, which is the finer marks, and paint more loosely the bigger marks where you want it loose. I think the face and the front of the body for me is what makes this image sort of stand out, so that's where I've kept my detail. So I'm coming in again, I think, is it with yellow ochre now? Yeah, maybe. It's difficult to see, isn't it, when my hand's in the way? So yeah, just going in with the colours I can see, going back, they're all mixed up and on my tray, so I'm just going all around now with the colours I've already used. There will be another darker layer, probably, I think I did another 2 after this. Yeah, there we are. So actually I'm going in with a darker brown now. So here you can see me just going in and looking back at the picture, and where is it its darkest. So right underneath the front of its chin it's dark, and then it's got that patch of darkness on its back, and there's another patch of darkness now on the very outside edge. You'd be surprised when you really make that picture large so that you've got the full picture. You could print it off maybe. You can see on the very edge there's a few dark pieces of fur. So yeah, just working along and around, making sure that I'm looking back again and really starting to darken up the more darker areas. Again, this is what will give its 3D-ness, how dark the darks are, and making sure we keep the light areas light. So I'll let you watch the rest of that part. So having dried that layer, I'm now mixing up a black colour because I feel that some of that fur is actually quite dark and almost black. So I am putting some black in, doing exactly the same as before, marking wherever the fur is going and keeping all of the lines haphazard. We don't want patterns of lines, we don't want straight fur because fur in real life is a big mess, it's all over the place. So that's what I'm trying to represent in this video. I also go back over the face a little bit and the ears with the black also. So I shall be quiet now and let you watch the rest and paint along. Now I'm just going over the eyes because they greyed out, and I'm really putting in a bit of black where it shows up black, and keep it lighter. You'll be able to see when you look up close on your image where it's lighter. I will at the end be getting some acrylic white out and putting some white on the eye where it's shining, and that's the final pop of the rabbit. And as you can see now, we're past the ugly stage. We're coming towards the finished stage. It's starting to look like the rabbit it needs to look like. We can kind of see the rough shape of where the front legs are coming out and how the body's leaning backwards. So we are getting there. And now I'm just coming in again, I think, with that dark colour and refining some of the areas around the ear, making sure it's really dark where it's supposed to be really dark, because then look how much that makes the ears pop. Where it's lighter, it's pushed out, and where it's darker, it comes jumping out at you, it pops out. I love that simple technique. It's one of the most important things I have learnt in my journey with art over the last 5 years, is value. It really is. It doesn't matter what colours you're using. It could be a purple rabbit, as long as it's light purple and dark purple, you're gonna have an amazing 3D rabbit that pops out of the picture. It's just gonna be a purple one. And really, I just it's amazing how that small thing can make a difference to your artwork. So it's starting to come together, but I do feel as though I haven't quite got the face right, so I do go back in and I refine the mouth area, sorry, not the mouse area, the mouth area. I think I've got mouse on the brain. My cats, I've got 2 lovely cats, but they keep bringing me mouse presents and it's really not great. Anyway, mouth. So I do go back in a minute and finish off the mouth area and make it darker where it should be a bit darker. So I'm just going to leave you to watch and follow along as I finish off the face area, and then I'll pop back on before the end. So loved his pink little nose. We're now going to move on to doing the grass. Oh, here is the white acrylic. I'm going in with white acrylic just to whiten up again the areas that are white, and it's a really good finishing touch. It does mean it's not just watercolour, we'd have to say it's mixed media, but that's fine. Does it matter? Doesn't really, does it? Not in my eyes anyway. So yeah, I've gone round on the body fur as well with the whites, where I think it should be a bit lighter again. Anyway, we're going on to do the grass now. I'm really loose, still using a round brush, using the tip, and basically just going for it. So getting some greens, mixing some greens up, and yeah, you'll see, I'm just going for it. Use different tones of green, difference in value, darker and lighter, mix the greens with the yellows, and you'll see I'm just having fun with it. It doesn't need to be perfect because the focus is the rabbit, or it could be a hare actually, I'm not sure, it's a rabbit or a hare. I don't think that matters either, it's a cutie. And so the one thing I realise as I'm doing this is that I need to come in and fill in some of the background again, especially around the ears where there's a bit of white where I've missed, and some of the colours aren't dark enough. I don't want to go quite as dark as the photo. I like the fact that it's light, but I'm going to add in some some darker colours on the background, and that's what I'm thinking at the moment. I'm looking at the green and I'm thinking, yeah, that's great, I can see that coming on, but before I do any more I need to sort that background out. So and then I come in and do some more green. Just make sure you are drying in between layers, remember that. So I'll leave you to watch the rest. Yeah, I think that's it. Yeah, oh, and some of those greens are yellowy green, so I've mixed a yellow and green just to lighten it up, and then I go back in with some brown because there is a bit of brown in there, just earthy colours to make it more realistic. And here's to the final part. We're just finishing off the grass at the front. Again, it's not exactly like the image, but it doesn't matter because the focus is the animal itself. That's the main thing that we want to look at. So now I'm getting some of the colours I've used in the image, and we're just doing splatters, so make it really, really watery. Small little taps. Any big taps will create big blobs, and you don't want any big blobs. Just a few. I just like the effect of it. It makes me happy. And we need to do more of what makes us happy. I like to splash paint, so hopefully you do too. I've used some browns, I've used some greens, I've used some yellows. So I've done the yellows mainly over the grass, linked the browns and the greens into the background. It doesn't matter if it goes on the rabbit, it's quite nice if some of them do. It doesn't have to just be in the background. Splish, splash away and have fun. I add some more colours in the foreground. That does look quite dark now, but when it dries it's fine, it just goes in. I just wanted a bit more brown in there because there is some in the picture. Yeah, this is the fun bit. All of it was fun. But this to me is just a little bit of fun for after, once it's all done. So here we go, the big reveal. It's time to peel. So this is painter's tape. Sometimes it can peel some of the paper up, so you do have to be really careful, and I'm fiddling and faffing about trying to get it off carefully. And as you can see, it does peel a little bit off. You've got to just be really careful. And then once you take the tape off, it's my favourite bit, the big reveal. I hope if you've painted along that you've enjoyed it, and I hope you like your final product. Don't forget to subscribe, like and comment. Thanks guys.